what was your first contact with the fire service?
Okay.
Like, where did you first, like, was it like a childhood
Sure.
dream? Or
Now?
was it, yes.
Okay.
Was it a childhood dream, or was it like a moment where you joined the fire service?
So I got into the fire service relatively young, about the age of 14. Don't have any family in the fire service. There's no fire service ties. The closest thing to public safety is that, my brother is a police officer and a detective. So I was in high school and I was looking for volunteer opportunities, so in the States, in a lot of areas to graduate high school, you have to volunteer a certain amount of hours.
Yeah.
So in order to graduate high school, you have to document all of your hours that you volunteer.
Which is a pretty cool concept.
It's pretty neat.
There's nothing resembling that in Sweden. No.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
So it gets people out and doing things.
Yeah, I think it's amazing.
You could work in the soup kitchen, you could pack boxes, you could, help in different areas. I found a youth group in the fire department.
Yeah.
So the youth group in the fire department would go and do public EMS. So they'd train you as a emergency responder. You weren't allowed to be trained at the EMT level until the age of 16. Yeah. So they would basically train you in first aid and CPR.
Yeah.
And then you would go and do first aid at community events. And I got to do some pretty neat things, through presidential inaugurations. You'd go down to the National Mall in D.C. and presidential funerals, and then just community events.
Yeah.
And so that kind of opened my eyes into what the fire service is, who they are, what they do. And then I looked for an opportunity to join the fire station basically as early as I could.
Yeah.
So where I am, most of the places you can join at the age of 17. I found one that you could join at 16, so I just joined there.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know which place was better to go than another, who did what their different functions were, but just went for that.
Yeah.
And so the day I turned 16, I put in my application, and a month or two later, I had gone through the interview process and joined the department. And so I've been doing it since the day I turned 16, basically, and started out, everybody in the States in our area, you are required to be an EMT also. Yeah. So you have to be trained in the medical arena in order to do fire, and typically it has to come first. So you have to get trained as an EMT, you have to ride the ambulance, then you have to learn how to drive the ambulance, and you basically put in your time.
Yeah.
And you do that, and then you can get trained as a firefighter, or do paramedic.
Yeah.
Some people do both, but it's hard to juggle. They're both considered, an advanced track.
Yeah.
And so my focus was fire. I did EMS because I had to.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, but I obviously like firefighting more. and then
Touché.
Went with that. So that actually is what started my path towards fire protection. I knew I was fairly good.
When you joined the fire service, if you look back on, was that in your state? Was there a state fire academy, or was it local fire academy?
Mostly local.
Mostly
so we have the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute, which is kind of like the state training agency, if you will. They have different training academies positioned throughout the state.
Yeah.
But our county within the state also has a training academy that's fully staffed by county paid firefighters and volunteers in some cases to give you that training.
Yeah. So how much do you remember from that training? It was like
how long a fair amount.
Fair amount.
That was 14 years ago now.
Yeah.
So I actually did it as a part of high school. So what's also neat about the States is I did it what they call a cadet program. And it's not, I would say, very prevalent, but in our area we had it, where I would only take 3 high school classes, and then at 9:30 in the morning I would leave and I would go to the fire academy. And then the fire academy, I'd be there from 10 in the morning until 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And so that was part of my schooling. So every day, I would have a bagged lunch, and I'd go take math and reading in high school, and then I'd drive to the Fire Academy. Yeah. And so while everybody else is back in school, I had the opportunity to do firefighting. So I took a class that way, and I liked it. I liked it a lot more in the sense that it felt a little bit more like what I would imagine a recruit class to be.
Yeah.
So there was more camaraderie. You know, we had a flag, we had a slogan. You know, you're doing PT, and it lasted the entire year. You know, entire school year. So you know, September to June. You know, we did Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2. Hazmat, truck company operations, rapid intervention.
You covered a lot.
It was a pretty in-depth program.
Yeah.
And, you know, that all led me to get into fire protection, where I said, you know.
Was it that school that led you to fire protection? It wasn't the fire service itself, it was that program?
Well, it was the fire service itself. You know, I knew I wanted to go to college and do something. And, you know, math and science is where I was stronger. You know, I didn't particularly care for the English and the art side of things. And so I went to Maryland. I was like, well, you know, I'm a part of the volunteer department about a half an hour away. You know, I want to stay within the state. You know, what does Maryland have for engineering? And I just happened to go to an open house and see fire protection. You know, they were doing the fire tornado. And, you know, had candles and we're doing different experiments. And I was like, well, hey, you know, there's engineering, there's fire. Let's try it.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
And then I did that. So I did my bachelor's there. I rolled straight into master's because I knew if I took a break, I was not going to
come back.
And when I got out of the bachelor's, I was working for the fire marshal's office. It's what we call the NIH, the National Institute of Health. And worked with their fire marshal's office doing plan review. You know, looking at sprinkler systems, fire alarm systems, and all that. And I was like, well, you know, I got to find something that lets me tie this to the fire service more. And in order to go through promotion, to go from, you know, firefighter to company officer, I had to go through some training. And as a part of that training, I happened to go sit in a seminar that was taught by Dan. And you know, he went through some experiments they did, talked about.
Did you work at NIST?
The findings. After that.
Oh, it was after that?
So I went up afterwards and I said, you know, hey, you know, I'm Keith. It says fire protection engineer. You know, how did you do this? How did you get into this? And I was like, I want to be a part of this. Like, just for free, just tell me, I want to do this. And then so I started as an intern with NIST, and then worked with them while I was doing my master's. You know, and then, you know, we're all one now with UL. And so it just kind of, a lot of things kind of lined up, but happened by chance. And here we are.
Yeah, well, it's not chance if you're looking for it, because
you
know, you saw what you wanted. You went, you just have and asked. And it's surprisingly easy to. It's closer to what you want to do usually than you think.
Yeah, true. Very true.
It's like, you're like, I can never go. They go like, go up and ask. Like, like,
so, well,
done.
What can it hurt?
Hey,
how do I do this?
Let
me be a part of this.
There's a few people that go up and say like, well, that just have, I want to do this. Like, they don't really care about the cost, or like how does you do this? Sometimes you get questions like, how can you go out and travel the world and teach? Go like, yeah, that's not going to solve itself. You just have to, you want to have to do it. Like, you just have to start doing it. You have to travel and meet people, and like, you just have to go for it.
Networking, and if your heart's in the right place, and if you want it, you know.
It's surprisingly what you can achieve if you want it. But if you go like, no, I want somebody to pay me to do it. Like, you're like, no, that's not how it works. Like, if you want something,
careful with your expectations.
You have to like work for it. But now, if you get, but to go back to, because I have a right now a special interest like in how to start incidents. Like, I found out when I became, especially when I became an officer. Like, you read books and there's a long list of things what you're supposed to do before you like commit personnel into a building, because you have to check that there's not hazards, or your power is out, or you check the fire behavior and structural stability, and there's a long list of good things, and you read all those things and you go like, yeah, that makes sense. But in practical reality, when you get to the fire scene, you go like, there's a million things to think about, just ignore them and just go in.
Yeah, I have 3 people. What do I do?
Yeah, so there was a huge disconnect where I constantly ended up saying like I don't fix this. I can't handle all that information.
Sure.
So you just take a guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I mean, the better you are, you probably make better guesses. Like gut feeling that it feels pretty good, but it's still just like a gut feeling, and the worst part is I couldn't teach it. Like how do you teach a gut feeling? Like
right.
you still have to
that's
teach. That's the experience piece.
Yeah.
That's like when you watch 1,000 YouTube videos, the gut feeling tells you that it's going one direction or another.
Sure.
But just that moment when you just arrive and you're supposed to do, especially as officer, but the same goes for the firefighter. You supposedly should watch a million things and make a like a good assessment of. I should go there and go there.
All
go
while
there.
you're getting ready and
you put
you're
a
not
gear
standing
on,
there
and
processing
there's
all this.
someone talking to you like, like everybody's out and my dog is in there or whatever it could
Sure.
be. Like there's so much to take in, and I quickly realized that I did not have the tools to fix this, and being a Firenerd for many years did not seem to help.
Yeah, well, it's not going to sit right with you.
No, my system I had in place was just not working,
Sure.
which was I'll just fix it when I get there. Like I'd take the optimal decision. So I started, and this week we talked about things and like what you have to do and like no go and no go, and so on. Like how do you make a decision? But the first thing again, like talked to it, like Sweden had a system where we didn't have. We've pretty much scrapped all the standard operating procedures because they were based on units. They're based on like a standardized brick, and for us the brick was firefighters in an engine. We don't have engine companies and truck companies, so firefighters are an engine. And if you have always 5 people at an engine, you can do like, well, this should do this should do this should do this. But then you start fractionalizing the system, and now we have a system where it's in most places it's just maybe one person arriving in a small vehicle, then maybe 2 people arriving at an engine, and then there's 2 people coming at a tanker, one at a tanker, and they all arrive at different times. You don't know who's going to be first and so on.
It's a different world.
Which is I think most fire departments will get there sooner or later because of budgets. Probably not. That's true. But when you start to make it more efficient, in the sense that, well, you want to have the first responder with a vehicle in his house because you don't want them to go to the fire station, the part-time station, then they take a vehicle because you lose time. So they get them at their house. Like there's incremental steps at reducing response times, even though it doesn't cost that much money. But it creates those problems with arriving at different points.
With different amount of people.
With different amount of people, different routes, and you get different resources. So our standard operating procedures, both for a lot of cities and that one started to fall apart. They also fall apart because we started having more options. Like if you go back 20 years, the default was always interior attack. That was the only option we had. It was pretty easy to be an officer. You just come out from the scene and you go like, that's the front door. You point to the front door, go in there, just so that I have some time to think. If you start working there, I'll assess if that was a good decision.
I'll come find you.
Yeah. But then we also started having like PPV, and then you start having exterior attacks like fog nails and cobras for punching through the wall, and then you get transitional attack. It's re-emerged as a tool in the toolbox, and now I start having more pieces to it. And then again, all standard operating procedures are written for the standardized interior attack.
Sure.
And after that, it was kind of nobody just took the time to. We're a small country, like with only 14,000 firefighters, so like there's not many who do stuff thinking.
Yeah, fair.
Most people are locked in operations. They're just so there's not a lot of development going on, seriously. So starting to have that, and so then I started looking at more like United States, who has SOPs and so on. So I want to start with like, how would you, where you work now as a, how does your SOPs look like? Have they changed?
So typically the SOPs have definitely changed.
Yeah.
They've incorporated a lot of the research now.
Yeah.
And we actually, I'll give you this background and then tell you about the standard box assignment, I guess. So we we've always been an SOP-driven department. The SOPs previously were much more prescriptive in the sense that they told you exactly what to do.
Yeah.
About a year and a half ago or so, we went through an entire rewrite of the firefighting SOPs that give people options now.
Yeah.
So it's toying that fine balance of giving people options but keeping some sort of structure to make sure that things
There's a
are happening.
framework that, like,
Right,
starts-
and that you're actually getting through your list
Yeah.
and checking all your priorities. But we've tried to make it now so that your actions are communicated but defendable. So
Yeah.
if you're carrying out a fire attack at a specific incident scene and your fire attack plan deviates from what the SOP says, if you're able to communicate it, defend your actions, and understand why you did that, then it's okay.
So you're allowed
It's okay to deviate
if
from
you
policy.
just explain why.
And communicate it,
And
so that
communicate,
everybody
yeah.
else on the fire ground knows.
Yeah.
So it's put a lot more onus on the company officer to be able to think when they get there and see, because maybe the front door is not the door we're always going to go in.
Yeah.
Maybe during my 360, which we should be doing and communicating over the radio, that I get around to the Charlie side of the building, it's below grade, and I see that there's smoke in the basement.
Yeah.
Well, now that's going to drive me to think that there's fire. We want to fight fire from the lowest level. Maybe we need to redirect and go around the back because there's a walkout, and we can go in the basement and start our attack there. So it's giving options in the playbook, but still having some sort of structure.
So if we take an example, let's take a single residential house, 2 stories, no basement. You arrive at the house. You don't know if people are inside or not. You see flames shooting out on a window on second floor on Charlie's side. Like maybe it's a bedroom on fire
Sure.
or something. Like what would be the first thing when you arrive at the fire truck? What would be the first thing happens where you expect, according to the SOPs, that the officer would do like the first minute of that incident?
So I would say that typically the first in engine company that's going to get there, the officer is going to have an expectation of the guys in the back that they're going to have the line deployed to the front door. So typically the officer is probably going to state what size line they're going to use and what length, so they know what line to pull, and then they'll get that through the door.
What kind of pre-connects do you have?
So the department is actually switching now to come back a little bit to introduce 1.5" hose lines into the pre-connect, but 1.5", 1.75", 2", and 2.5.
Oh, you got 4 different sizes?
So quite a few options.
Yeah. Do you think that's too many options?
We'll see. So typically it's been 1.75", 2", and 2.5.
Yeah.
And it's always been the thought process of, big fire, big water,
Yeah.
but we see that if you get water where it needs to go, maybe we don't want such a lot of water. If I have an 1.5" line that I can operate with one person and move around a lot more efficiently, maybe that leads to better effectiveness than more water.
Yeah. So 1.5" would be roughly around 38, which was our standard in Sweden before, like if you go back to 70s, 80s.
Okay.
But that changed to 42, which is like closer to 1.75".
Sure.
It's not because of fire, because of foam injectors.
Okay.
So there was like a law back then, it's not really now, but that you had to have foam injection capability for it was stupid. But anyway.
We went through an entire period where we had CAFs, compressed air foam. All the engines were CAF equipped.
Yeah.
So it was standard that the fire attack line that you pull is gonna have CAFs.
Yeah.
And then there were issues with maintenance. There were a couple calls where there were concerns whether the CAFs played a role in injury, based on what happened, so on and so forth. We did the study at NIST looking at CAFs versus Class A versus water for suppression. Foam has its application, right?
But it didn't do much use.
But during interior suppression, fire knockdown, water is what's doing the work.
Yeah.
And
that was when you kept. Well, we're getting sidetracked here, but that was CAFs. What kind of mixture with foam and water was that? Like the
I want to say it was 3%. But I'm not
sure. The foam. But how much water and air? Like how
I'm
much?
Not sure.
How much air? Because
sure.
I think that in Sweden we have much more air than
Yeah, it could be.
it's much more fluffy. It's much more watery in the United
Sure.
States. I don't know how much difference does it make, but
Sure.
I think there's different.
Well, and
But
they also use the same, so nothing was changed about the nozzles. So it
Yeah.
was using a standard nozzle. So I mean, the
fog nozzle?
nozzle's going to come into play too.
Fog nozzle or smoothbore?
Fog nozzle.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, yeah, that's probably breaking down the droplets
Sure.
a lot.
So-
That was used in study with NIST.
Yep.
Why?
I'll send you the report.
Well, I've read it, but I didn't really. I remember because I read it. I know that the study showed that there wasn't much use of it, but there's two major differences towards
Sure.
that. That was not a problem.
So we
yeah.
went from cast back to water.
Yeah.
Our water, we now have anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 inch lines
Yeah.
that you could use. The officer is now dictated to do a 360.
Yeah.
So it's in the policy that must occur. If that does not occur, it needs to get stated on the radio
Yeah.
that it doesn't occur. So typically what the and it's not always that an engine's going to get there first.
Yeah.
Where I volunteer, it's a rescue squad only.
Yeah.
So I'm just not a big toolbox. I don't have water. I don't have aerial ladders to do anything. We search the building. That's all we do. But whoever
Got
gets there
fire
first.
extinguishers.
Yeah, we got water cans,
Yeah.
and we have extension ladders.
Why not dry
So,
can? Why not dry can?
Yeah, we have dry cam.
That's the good stuff.
So we
Sometimes.
typically, who's ever getting there first, it's kind of an understood point that you're going to try and get as many sides of the building as possible by driving. So we touched on that today. If we're pulling up to a single family house, I'd prefer that the driver pull past, so I can get the D side, the A side, and the B side, or vice
absolutely.
versa,
Yeah.
right? And then I've got 3 sides of the picture already.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if you can't get the entire building, you doing that is already putting you a leg up to be able to give you some information.
Yeah.
If you can't do a 360, you notify that over the radio, and then the companies that are reporting to the rear will fill in that information when they get there. That's again another blanket fact that's going to happen based on the order of arrival and who gets there. The incident commander is expecting whoever is going to get to the back to give you a side C report. And on our command sheets for the command officers, it's a benchmark on there. Hey, has anybody told you about side C? Hey, what is the lowest level? What are the exposures? All of these things you'd pick up doing a 360.
So look, you pull up, you drive past the house, you get a look at 3 sides. You do like initial report on the radio, I guess, and then you jump out of the rig. Maybe there's someone meeting you, telling you like, my dog is in there, or whatever. They tell you something. What do you expect your firefighters to do while you're doing that?
Well, so keep in mind, I'm looking at this from the perspective of I ride a rescue squad.
Yeah.
So
we can start with that.
function
We can start with that.
search.
We can switch to an engine company later. But let's start with.
So looking at it from my eyes, it's an expectation that the crew, as they go towards the building, they're going to be doing their own size up. There's some sort of notion in different parts of the American Fire Service that if you have a report of somebody trapped or that you hear that it's a working fire before you get there, some people like to mask up before you get there. And so they'll get off the truck already with the mask on and straight inside. I personally don't necessarily believe in that mindset because I feel that it's too tunnel visioned, and we need to be taking in our seeing, our hearing, our feeling as we go towards the building to try and see what we have. I as the company officer don't just want to be the only one that's doing that. I want everybody that's with me to be doing that, and they look at the building and say, okay, hey, there's 2 windows over here with 2 windows on the side. That's probably a bedroom. I've got a small window here. That's a bathroom. I mean, these are things that I think everybody should be thinking about. So if I get inside and I'm on the 2nd floor and I'm doing a search and I feel small window, I remember back, okay, maybe that's the front of the building that I saw before I entered.
So doing a layout, like guesswork of how does the layout look like. It's part of that size up.
And then because we're looking for victims, we want to figure out what time of day is it and where is the fire. Because maybe my search doesn't start at the front door. Maybe my search starts the 2nd floor bedroom if it's 2 in the morning. My folks are likely to be sleeping upstairs. So all these kind of things. But as they're doing their own size up and getting to the front door to get ready, I'm going to take a lap around the building, and then we'll proceed forward.
would you in that case, let's say someone meeting you and you're going through the backside, maybe bringing them with you while
Sure.
you talk, would you commit people inside? Are they allowed to go inside before you have given them? Okay.
So we still do the 2 in, 2 out policy.
Yeah.
And the only time that goes out the window is if there's a known life hazard.
Yeah.
So either communications tells you that they have a report of somebody trapped.
Yeah.
Somebody out front tells you they're trapped, or you see somebody in a window, you
Yeah.
know, or hanging out. There's a little bit of a gray area, like the neighbor saying, "Hey, you know, they're usually home and their car's here."
Yeah, there's always
you know,
there's
then,
always a gray area.
You could argue
yeah.
yourself the way
Yeah.
you want, but
yeah.
if you go back and look at our system, you know, our system on a standard fire assignment is 5 engines, 2 trucks, a rescue squad, you know, and then we have EMS and chiefs.
Yeah.
So all of those units are getting there within 5 to 7 minutes from dispatch.
Yeah.
So if we happen to get there first and we're getting ready, we're doing a size up, I'm going around the building, by the time I'm back, 95% of the time, there's probably the first engine and the first ladder truck there. So there's not usually a delay where you'd have to keep people from taking action by policy.
Yeah.
It just kind of happens that way based on the system. I mean, of course, there's times where people are moved or other calls, and then it happens. But
are you a VES department?
I would say that we are looking at that as more of a viable option.
Yeah.
We're not at all told don't do that.
You just don't train
it's
for
considered
it.
more of a high risk search, if you will, right? Because you're not necessarily in the vicinity of a hose line. It's a different entry point. You know, there's considerations for flow path. I mean, my personal belief is I think it's something we need to probably look at more. Coincidentally enough, obviously with UL, we're starting a search project where we're going to look at different methods of search. That's, you know, that's where my heart is. That's what I you know, have always done and enjoy. So it's of particular interest to me. But I think VES is a solid tactic, and I think because it's not traditional, it's not standard, that it scares folks.
Would you say it's not traditional? I mean, when I go around, everybody knows what VES is.
Sure.
But would you say that most departments don't practice, like actually do VES in the United States?
At least from what I hear, and again, it's all just based on the experience of who I've talked to and the system that I know. But I would say a lot of departments will only do it if they have a report of somebody in the window or in that room. So if they have somebody says, my son is in that bedroom right there, then it would probably drive people to choose that tactic. But I don't think it's something that a lot of departments think about doing in general off the bat. Where I think that it has a lot of benefit, again, is looking at the time of day and where the fire is. And if it makes more sense to go and make entry somewhere else, you know, the window is just a different point of entry. You know, when I force the front door and go in the front door, that can cause problems too. You know, I'm introducing a new flow path into the building. That can change conditions for better or for worse, but the same theory is at a window. It's different, you know, when the fire's on the first floor, you're venting the second, you're now above, you know, you're more of an exhaust, all these things you've got to consider. But
it's also, that's where it makes the most sense, because if it's fire on the first floor, trapped on the second one, there's a lot of stuff to go through if you want to go up to the second floor.
Oh, and a lot of folks, you know, say, hey, if there's an engine and a truck already inside, I'm not using the same door, because we're just going to get stuck behind them. You know, we dump 35 people there in 5 to 7 minutes. You know, if the house is only 1,200 square feet, we're just bumping into each other. So pick a different place and go in that way. And I also think there's a disconnect with VES, that VES doesn't necessarily need to be limited to one room. So
that you can extend the search from that room?
It's just a different starting point. So if I look at the window on the second floor at the AB corner as my entry point, that's just a new front door. So if I make entry to that window, you know, I have to be cognizant of the fire conditions, obviously.
Well, you always have to be that.
For sure. And I know that the window is now open. I isolate, I quick search, see what I can do. If I'm able to isolate, that also means that I can open the door, go out, close the door again, and then I can search the area. You know, given the conditions on the second floor. But I think it's something that's underutilized. I think when shown what are appropriate conditions to perform the task, that it's something that more departments will probably catch on to as being efficient. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it is one of the tactics that got a bad rap because probably because, like many other things, most firefighters hadn't been trained to understand.
For sure.
Like there's always this group who always understood the risks, or who are really into it, and they understand sort of what it is. But then you have also the main group,
yeah,
which just sees people doing it, copies it, but don't
sure.
really understand the risk, and they might get in trouble. And then you have, of course, a lagger also that does it incredibly stupid.
Yeah,
when you
and who's translating the message?
Yeah. And then you see someone climbing into a room that's already sort of flashed over,
right?
And you go like, yeah, that's not probably good.
Yeah.
But then, like in Swedish, like it's like there's nothing that says you can't do it in Sweden either. Like, but it's never practiced. But there's lots of I would say there's lots of incidents where it's performed from ladders or ladder trucks, like. Doing an interior attack from a ladder truck, that was part of a lot of department standard operating procedures.
Sure.
That would be a fire attack with a hose line.
Sure.
Like, but you could also, by Swedish law, it says if you go into a smoke-filled environment, you have a hose line, which is established like 70s or maybe 60s or 50s. It was just that one of those connections you made with. It seems like if you have a hose line with you, people don't die as much.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's wrong.
It's not inaccurate.
No, it's not inaccurate. I mean, it's based on the fact that Johnny didn't understand what he was doing. He went in too far with a hose line, couldn't get out, killed. Now nobody gets to go out with a hose line.
Yeah.
So it is like always with regulations that you have regulations because you don't provide enough training or understanding.
That's not uncommon. You'd be amazed how many SOPs get put forward because John Smith didn't do X task on a certain incident, and now it's everybody has to do it.
And that's it. And many of those laws have performed a vital task. I mean, we all wish that in unicorn land, everybody was trained. For instance, like VS, everybody was trained in a very good manner to identify that this is probably a bedroom. You know, the possibility of a victim is high, or even know there's a victim. You crash the window. You don't do it with the ladder tips. You understand that you need to do it. You really be ready. You wipe the floor, wipe the window, on air, stand on the floor, jump in, check the floor, straight to the door. And if there's not a door, realizing that I'm in a real bad spot. If
now the clock is ticking.
Now the clock is ticking. But if I get that door, I have time, and I can search, and I can even extend my search. I don't have a problem with that. Now, the reality is that most Johnnies are still out there, poorly trained, and that's that's really why we get regulations.
Yeah.
Like, we have too many Johnnies. Now you get a law. You can't do that anymore.
Sure.
So I don't have a problem with the regulations most of the time. I just wish we hadn't had to have them because we had better training.
Yeah, you lose flexibility and options
tons of it. Like Sweden, like I did a story. Did I tell you about the Russian hotel?
No.
It was a Swedish department who went to Russia.
Okay.
And maybe I shouldn't tell this. I shouldn't even tell this because it could be like a political problem. No, anyway, but there's a problem. Of course, we all know that if you search without a hose line, you're way faster.
Sure.
Like, I mean, we all also know that the potential to get disoriented or don't be able to react with the hose line if there's, suddenly fire everywhere, that's also a problem, of course. But both of those are, I would say, with good education, I'm not saying entirely preventable, but highly preventable.
Sure.
And I would trust you in doing search with a hose line a lot more than the average firefighter with a hose line. Like, I think you're way safer without a hose line than most firefighters are with it, because you have done a lot of studies and you get a good feel for when is it bad or when is it good.
When do your spidey senses?
When you go. So I don't have a problem with that, and I think that a lot of discussion is if you have someone says, I like VIS, and then there's documented cases, and the theory is sound about why you should do it, and I understand that point of view. I also understand the one who goes like, operating above fire is like, you should have a rule against that,
Sure.
because we have too many Johnnies.
Yeah.
Like, that's totally understandable too. And that's where I would like the more libertarian view of regulations, that you put your local
Sure.
decision,
Sure.
rather than like a federal, in that case, like, oh no, Johnny in Wisconsin can't handle fire behaviors. No, now none of the American fire departments
Put it in the hands of the incident commander.
Yeah.
Let the incident commander evaluate what's going on at the scene, and they can decide whether or not it's okay. They know the people that are there.
Yeah. That would be better. Now, the counter argument to that would be like, we got too many Johnnies being incident commanders too.
Yeah.
So of course, it all based on that one. So I think that's a hard nut to crack. I mean, the best ones are, I think that if you see it as a guideline, if your department has a guideline, you say, okay, we got a lot of Johnnies, we don't have the budget to fix it. Well, at least we know enough that we have a problem, but
Sure.
we don't have the budget. Our staff's not motivated enough to train and so on. So we say, we have too many Johnnies. So our rules of engagement, or rule of thumb, or whatever it might be, say we don't do VIS unless the incident commander deems it necessary. Like you give them a baseline, say we don't do this.
Sure.
But if the incident commander says, well, this seems to be like a really good place, or now we have X, Y, and Z on shift, and they're really switched on about this. You can have the decision to override that.
Leaves it as an option.
Leave it as an option. But as a baseline, you say, look, like that's not normally something we do, because we haven't trained on it.
Sure.
Like if you arrive at that door, you realize that there is not a door here, or a door is jammed with 4,000 pieces of items.
Yeah.
Like can't get anywhere. Start getting hot. Okay, and now I need to be sort of trained to find my way back to the window without getting panicked, and being able to slide out to that ladder without killing myself.
Yeah.
I mean,
because most of the time you're not at grade then.
You're not
walking out of that.
No.
Grade. Yeah.
So in that case, you probably have to train a little bit, and they go like, well, it only takes an hour. Yeah, but an hour is an hour for a volunteer department.
Sure. Well, and even if it's an hour's not enough.
No, it's not. It's
1 hour every week.
Yeah. If you want
to,
if you want to be proficient at some of those,
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say that let's revert back to the incident. So you're running around to the backside. You got 2 crews in your. How many are you in your rescue?
Minimum of 3.
Minimum
so
3.
Driver, officer, and 1 in the back.
Yeah. So your colleague is standing on the front door waiting for you.
Yep.
And then your engine arrives, and the truck company arrives. So you're 2 out. You're out back in. Now, if let's say that you got the situation with the fire on the 2nd floor, maybe a bedroom on the 2nd floor. So where would you start your search?
So if you talked about, before, do I remember the training from cadet class, it's been taught for a very long time that you're going to go to where the fire is and you're going to search out.
Yeah.
Your people are in most hazard where the fire is. But then we start to look at victim data, and it's loose because we only know so much about, a human being that is impacted by fire or smoke. But you look at some of the stuff from the fire attack study and you see that, well, maybe it's not close that's most dangerous. Maybe it's remote, because it's going to change based on how close you are to the fire and then how high you are in the space.
And where the flow path are going.
Yeah, for sure. So, it's a crapshoot half the time. You don't know where.
It's not an easy solution, but I mean, it's a good question to start with. Like,
sure.
If you take 2 on here, let's say you have a couple of closed rooms on the top floor, and you have, of course, open rooms. Would you search would you search the open spaces before you search the closed rooms, or would you?
So my current theory on that, and we'll see. I may come to eat these words whenever we finish this project.
Everybody guesses.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So my current thought on that is, if I come to a closed door in the process of a search, I instinctually want to at least see what's behind it.
Yeah, you want to do that.
So, I'm not going to direct the crew to necessarily go in the room or anything, it's like, let's pause a quick second. Let me just pop the door open and see. Is it clear? Does it lead off into 4 more rooms?
Yeah.
You know, I may think I know where I am,
Yeah.
but I may think this is a single bedroom on the 2nd floor, but it may open somewhere else because I've been disoriented. So I want to at least like crack the door to see what's there and close it. If there's visibility, I would say move forward.
You would search that room?
No, move forward
go
to
the
the
place.
open rooms, right? But I struggle personally to pass space without at least getting an eye on it.
Because, I mean, like we were trained. We were trained, like go right or left side in the wall.
Sure.
And then it doesn't matter if it's an open door or a closed door. You go in and search it like that. And then the UL data came. Which one of the points the first studies came out was, of course, this seems to be a lot better visibility and a long time, but especially you don't get neither thermal threat or poisonous threat. I mean, that could change depending on.
Sure.
It could be, there's many ifs and buts about that. How you know, is there a small leakage in the window there, so you get easier in, and there's ifs and buts. But let's just say that we assume that the environment is good in there. So my thought process was, if you arrive in a smoky hallway and you arrive at a closed door, there can only be 3 situations in there. They're either a fire, but that's not probably because the environment outside is bad, and it wouldn't be that bad, like banked down, bad visibility. So there's probably not a fire in there. So it's either in there that there's a victim or there's not. Like, and if you go by data, it was like, well, if the data is true, which seems to be replicable, and there's other studies that kind of inadvertently show this. You know, they could just look at a normal fire test between different doors, and you see that a normal door is pretty solid for a long time. Like, and you just
thin hollow cold door.
Thin hollow cold door, because usually you don't have direct flames impingement. You just have hot smoke because there's not enough oxygen outside. But anyway, so if you look at data, go like, well, if there is a person there, they're pretty good. At least they're not bad. I mean, they're scared. If they're awake. I mean, there might be, alcohol and so on. But maybe they're scared and so on. Now, if there's a person in there and they're pretty good, and I pop my head in there and I look at them, now I have 2 options. Either I go in there, of course, and I'm stuck with them. Sure. I'll sit with them. I'll do that, and then other people outside might die because I'm tied there, and I'm only really comfortable. Or I just close the door and go out again. Sure. And they're gonna go like, what the fuck? Where did they go?
It's not easy.
No, right? The assumption is like they're if the assumption is they're good. Yeah. That might be to go like the door. Like, I assume if someone is in there, they're good, and the likelihood that someone is in the open space, if they got anyone there, they are not feeling good, or they're a lot more in danger. Yeah,
so that's sound logic.
But it's not easy to do that.
There's also, you get a lot of cases where there's Jack and Jill bathrooms. Yeah. And you've got one bedroom connected to another bedroom.
Oh yeah, you get double
so it's
entries.
Not all uncommon to open the door and see that there's smoke to the floor. Yeah. So then it becomes a room I need to search.
I think there's also a problem because, first off, it's like you see in the studies, it's easy to see visually smoke in there. Sure. So it looks smoky. Sure. But the poisonous levels are really low. Thermal threat is really low.
And you're out of the flow path.
Yeah. So when you open the door, the visual appearance is probably that it doesn't look that great. Sure. And it's also that when you open that door, you're going to have an inrush of smoke coming from, and that's where you put your head. So you might have that first meter of smoke just coming from you open a door, and the visual appearance is again a smoky room.
And that stuff you have to be thinking about, because if you're not, you're going to think that the whole room's that way.
Yeah, look,
not that it was just the inrush from the door. So I mean, that's why this is just me personally. That's why it would be something that I would want to do. Yeah. Not assigned to somebody else. Yeah. I know it needs to be quick. I need to get my head low. Yeah. And I need to get the door closed again soon. My thought process is, if you open the door and you find a victim in there, if the victim is alive and conscious, you say, "Stay here, help's coming." Close the door. Yeah. You could, it depends, right? How big is your crew? Yeah. If I have 3 people with me, hey, you go babysit them in the room and call for a ladder to the window.
Yeah.
Right. The rest of us are going to go search.
Yeah.
If it's just two of you and we need to keep searching, you know, who knows? I mean, these are these kind of things where I don't think it is black and white.
Oh no, this is a hard question. This is a super hard question, but I think it's interesting.
I still think, and I've had this conversation with people. My hunch currently is still I want to at least get eyes behind the room. Behind the door.
My thought process is
I have trouble passing a door without seeing what's in there.
But it is this that you have to overcome, because that's why we were trained. But you have to overcome that and say, like, okay, if I make the conscious choice, like it might be a bad environment in there, it might be a person, but the likelihood is larger at the open space I have in front of me, for instance.
Agree. Yeah. Because the door is closed.
The rational choice, even if, I mean, you go like, what if? Well, data shows, or the likelihood that someone is in more danger, but still possible to rescue, is further down into the open space.
Sure. So
I note the door and then just pass on, search the open space. And by the time I've searched the open space, in your case, hopefully the engine company's got water on the fire.
Right.
And we got, hopefully ventilation started, because, you know, like, hopefully we get water on the fire in a couple of minutes.
Sure.
Ventilation starts to happen. And by the time I get back to that door, I have a much better environment when I open it, and there's somebody in there.
Sure.
But this has been a struggle, and go like, but for I've landed in like how to make simple guidelines also. Like, we changed to not go just search, you know, systematically door to door. You search open spaces first, and then you search closed spaces.
Sure.
And hopefully by the time you search closed spaces, you have a better environment, because you have fire attack. If you don't have a better environment, you would sneak in, close the door behind you, and maintain the sort of the integrity of the room. If it's not dual entry, then
sure.
But again, that's the if and buts. But the second question is the one about closer to the fire or far away, because you also have the space here. Like, you could like do a thought process of you search fish first, and then you search like medium, and then you search high, because like, let's say if you want to search the places with the highest likelihood of finding survivors, you would search generally far away from the fire to the floor.
Maybe.
Yeah, but
yeah, I mean, you want to like talk about, like, you know, maybe there should be a new definition of what the primary search is.
Yeah.
Right? You know, the primary search should not be a left-hand or right-hand search where I go in and I'm doing this, this.
Would that be
maybe open areas in the flow path, you know, these kind of things, right? Where do you find people? You find people in the flow path because they're trying to exit. Yeah. They come out of good and go into bad, and then they drop. You know, that's why you see fire attack find people.
Or in their beds, of course.
Sure.
When they didn't get out.
You know, but I mean, the fire attack study pointed out, you know, that if you're close to the fire and you're low, maybe you're okay, because, you know, you're not in the toxic. If you're in the flow path,
mean in the flow path,
you're here. Yeah. Whereas somebody on the far end of the house is filled up with smoke and come down.
Yeah,
they're now overcome by toxin.
Yeah, it is.
You know, so I mean, it's that huge what if game. Where are the victims? How high are they? Are they in the flow path? Are they outside of the flow path?
So we've like, if you go back 10 years, there wasn't any that's called primary search or secondary search.
Sure.
It was just search, but it changed with the tick. That was the thing that brought, I think, a big change in Sweden. And this is not implemented everywhere. There's just huge discrepancies within Sweden, just like any other country.
Sure.
There's big differences. But a primary search in Sweden would now be a short sweep with a thermal imager. So it might not be the open spaces. It might be that you go door to door to door. But the first sweep would go into the room, make a short sweep with thermal imager. If you see something of interest, like a bed, you go out straight to the bed, make a search in the bed or just around the bed, go straight out. So it would be, if you don't see anything of interest, like a bathtub, you go straight to the bathtub, feel the bathtub, go back out again.
Right. I don't need to feel on top of the dresser.
No. And the back, behind,
and
inside. Right. You go for the high priority places, and you do that around the house, and then you do a secondary search, which you actually search everywhere with your hands. And by the time you
typically by then there's more visibility anyway, because the fire's
because fire
you can break windows because there's water on the fire.
So it would be like the primary search would be heavily tick oriented right now. Like with all the, we know the problems with ticks. Like if you, and that's why you go from bed. You don't can see a person if it's lying there with a bed cover.
Sure.
You don't see them. But it's interesting that could be, because it hasn't been. That could be together with open spaces first. So you go run around with tick and just search open spaces first. Well,
and your tick tells you where the fire flows are.
Yeah.
That tells you, what the flow path is. You can see in there what's open, what's not.
Yeah.
We've incorporated the tick a lot more in searching and try and treat it as a more tick-oriented search.
Yeah.
So instead of left hand or right hand, we're going to go around and touch and feel everything.
Yeah.
We typically treat it as the officer will have the thermal imager. The officer is going to be, watching the fire conditions, but also maintaining some sort of orientation.
Yeah.
And, if we're on the second floor of a house, when we're going room by room, the officer won't be the one touching and searching. The officer will, watch what's going on with the fire, in the hallway, and then look in the room with the tick, and the people behind, not everybody has ticks.
Yeah.
So the officer will have the tick. The guys that are in the back are going to go in and do the search. The officer will look in and say, hey, this is a bedroom, bed's in the middle, closet to the left.
Yeah.
And so they'll do a quick sweep, and then come back.
Yeah.
And the officer can see the fire, and then they can see them, and then we close the door, and then you move on. So I would say that
he would bounce off people like, I want you to go there, I want you to go there.
Yeah.
Like a fishing line.
Yeah. Yep. All right, come back to me now.
You know what I mean? If you let's say you had a tick on every person.
Sure.
Would that change?
I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. We'll see. I don't know.
I mean, we still
I haven't thought that one through yet. So
no. Haven't had the luxury problem.
Ticks are becoming more prevalent.
It's just a matter of time before everybody has
before everybody has them. They're integrated into masks
Yeah.
and SCBAs now. The one thing I do fear about ticks, though, is again that tunnel vision piece, and not maintaining some sort of orientation, and seeing and feeling what's going on around.
But that was and I agree. But that was like the first couple of years with thermal imaging. It was like, well, we first have to learn the traditional search.
Sure.
And then if we have time, it puts a little bit on tick, because it's most important. It's like, I guess I try to describe it as like when the car came, like the horse drivers, like, oh, now you get a car also, but like a car breaks down, it's new, we don't really know how it works, so you have to maintain your skills with a horse, but like you can take the car,
yeah, but
you have to maintain the horse, like.
Sure.
Now, for me, it's like switch. Like at some point, you say like, we have cars now, we have ticks now.
Yeah.
Like that's the primary.
Let's train with them and learn how.
Let's train and use them. If that fails, we shouldn't be blind with that. We should be able to feel and get our sort of sense. But
sure.
What we should be good at ticks.
Why not use it if
search.
it's technology that can help? Yeah.
And I think we definitely passed that point where tick is the primary search tool.
Sure.
Zero visibility with your hands is a secondary.
For sure.
But you have that constant battle with, especially older firefighters, who go like, yeah, I'll first search with my hands, and then I'll take up the tick and I'll watch it. I'll watch a little bit, and you realize that they're looking through the wrong side of the tick because they don't have glasses, because they don't see anything anyway. You have those problems. But taking that aside.
Well, and then there's the other training side of things, right? Where learning where a tick can be useful and then where it can be misleading. And then so that just gets back to making sure people are educated in really how it's used.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will turn on a tick inside the fire and see that it washes out.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I just see white. This is useless. It's like, well, here's some parameters when and why that happens.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we'll definitely get there one day where every single person has a tick. And then it's how do we use them now?
Yeah.
Do you have to stay in pairs anymore?
Yeah, it is. I mean,
hey, I hear you.
Yeah.
You cover that room.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what we do now, right? You're not touching one another going around the room. We're not in a commercial building. We have residential fire now.
Yeah, our rules. I mean, and it's interesting because all around the world, firefighting departments are pretty much come up to that it's good to be in pairs.
Sure.
Like that's a general rule. Like,
Sure.
so you work in pairs, and some cases you have to wear a hose line or not. But like that's also one of the things that a lot of things, like Johnny, you can't be in the fire, you have to have a hose line. But again, like you said, like if one person has a tick and you're far away from each other and you don't have a hose line, now if that tick breaks, it could be fairly hard
Sure.
to find each other again.
Sure.
So it makes sense to stick together anyway. But let's say both have a tick, so it's highly unlikely that both ticks fail.
Right.
So if you're in the same room, you should be in the same space, or it shouldn't be like one in the bedroom and another one in the kitchen maybe. But if you have both have ticks, you easily see each other and you go like, yeah, if mine breaks, you go like, yeah, can you find me?
Yeah. Sure.
And they go like, yeah, you're over there. Okay, come
Yeah.
here. And now we'll work more closely together.
Well, and then depending on the severity of the fire conditions and who your crew is and the competency of the crew and the officer, if the officer's got the tick, I'm perfectly okay if I'm maintaining orientation in the hallway. I say, hey, cover that room right to the left. I got one more guy. Cover that room right there. They come back to me and we keep moving forward. You're in the same general area. You have expectations that if you find another room, you're not going to start going off somewhere else. And you're always talking back, if I stop hearing somebody, then I know there's a problem.
If we didn't have Johnny's, that would of course not be a problem.
Yeah, for sure. So it's 100% dependent on the people that go with.
Yeah. So our regulation would be that we can't work without a hose line if there's smoke, and you have to be in. Well, it really says in law you have to be in contact with each other, but it's not defined what contact is. So some define it as you have to actually be physically in contact. Okay. Otherwise, like if you both have you holding a hose line, you could be that, but you always have to. You can't let go of the hose line in that case. You can't work without a hose line.
So your folks that are assigned, do you assign people to search?
Yeah, but it would be. They would be.
Are they also doing fire attack?
Yeah, but in general it would be, as we operate today, I would say in general, first team go for fire attack.
Okay.
So second team might be assigned to search, but they would also have a hose line. So we only have hose line teams because that's what our law says. Okay. Again, Johnny did something stupid, so everybody gets a hose line, regardless if you need it or not.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one huge difference.
A huge difference. Like search for us is cumbersome.
Sure.
Which makes even more sense to go for fire attack and ventilation because search is such a slow process. Yeah. It's I mean, again, going back to would I like to get rid of that? Yeah, absolutely. But our law is old. Yeah. It's that. It's hard to change. It's really hard to get that changed. And you have to define new rules, like what is allowed, because we can. It specifically says if there's no fire hazard, you can break that rule.
There's no fire hazard, you wouldn't be there.
No, like you go. But if you can define that as like after fire attack. Sure. You could say like now it's no fire risk. It's just a smoke risk. It's like that. The risk is poisonous gases, of course. The risk is not finding your way out, but there's no fire risk. I mean, it's actually defined as the fire risk. So now you could, by definition, say that you can split that team up and don't have a hose line anymore. So there's flexibility in our law that we're currently not very good at using.
Well, then you get into, do you have knockback, knockdown, or extinguishment?
Oh, yeah. You have to define those things.
If the water's on the fire, does that mean the risk is gone? Or do you have to have it extinguished before you can then abandon the hose line?
What's the definition of extinguishment?
How much do you push that gray area? Do you even have people that know you can push the gray area?
No, but that's the thing. That's what regulations does. Those people who don't understand that you can't push the areas, they probably shouldn't do it in the first place.
Fair enough. That's the Johnny.
Yeah, that's the Johnny. They go like, just follow the rule, Johnny. No, but those who like really read the rules and start to find where you can bend it to suit your will, those are more relevant to be able to do that also.
So you talk about the basically fire attack versus search, right? Which is your first priority? Fire. It's always been fire attack for us. But a lot of times, we've run into issues where if you have a report of somebody trapped, then like that throws everything off. You know, the train's wheel fell off the track,
Yeah.
and now we're going this way.
Yeah.
So it's a huge challenge, I think, to try and keep people on their task.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
I think
Oh, yeah.
in most cases, if you get there on the engine company and you got a report of somebody trapped in the second floor bedroom, now this is our system,
Yeah.
right? So I know that there's 30 other people like that coming.
Yeah.
My best move is to just go put out the fire.
Yeah.
You know, the second engine or the truck or the rescue squad is like right here, right now,
Yeah.
and they'll go take care of the
Yeah.
person.
Which is not my reality.
No, and it's not a lot of folks' reality.
No.
Right? But
Most people just have one team to do
sure.
the first
and
5
then you have the
minutes.
decision of which one do you choose?
And most of the times, it will be most beneficial to do the fire attack.
Sure.
Because
But that is incredibly difficult
oh,
to
damn it. Oh, yeah.
to work through. Even if you or I were put in this
Yeah.
situation, it'd be like, that's really
Oh,
hard
yeah.
to like not go
Yeah.
and get that person that's right there, because I know that it's going to
Yeah.
be better to put out the fire.
Like there's a guy who did a presentation at a conference of those, you know, like those incidents that at least in Sweden and for most firefighters never happen. Like you ride into fire and like there's literally fire, like people hanging from balconies, the people here. It's like
Sure.
it's like, I've got 5 people. It's a mess. What do I do?
Yeah.
Like, and there was a fire in an apartment, bad sections between the apartments, so it's filled up with smoke in the staircase and the other apartments. So it was like multiple rescues in different places. Then it became like a you know, like Tivoli. You just go like putting up a ladder here and then start climbing out. And there's over here screaming, you need another
Yeah,
ladder.
yeah,
You don't
yeah.
have any more ladders.
Yeah.
You run to the neighbors and get a ladder, and like, you know, these problems. And that's where one of those incidents. But I mean, I think they did a good job in the chaos. But in 2020 hindsight,
Sure.
like you go this rational road, which is not easy. But you go like, what have happened if they just gone in through the staircase like normal? Put the fire out, which is probably not a big fire at that point.
Right. It's your smoke that's your
It's
hazard,
a smoke
not the
hazard.
fire.
Yeah, and just had that smoke ventilation. Would that have been a less of a problem? I'm not saying that, because I honestly don't know if that was possible.
Sure.
But that's like they didn't have, that wasn't part of their decision process. The decision process was, people are standing on balconies, we need to pick them down now.
Yeah.
Oh, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. Like they go like, what is this? Like, is somebody
Well, and I
playing
think
with
as
me?
long as you get to a point where the officer or the crew or both of them combined are making that conscious decision, then it's okay. If they're at least thinking, is it better to do this or better to do that? Okay, let me process. In this case, it might be better to do this. You know, then that's I'm communicating my actions and I'm defending them. You know, but if you're not even thinking about it and you're just operating in robo mode, you know, because I see people and I need to go to where people are, you know, we probably put ourselves in a lot more danger by not handling the problem over here because we're distracted by the unicorn over here.
And it is, I mean, it's of course a really hard problem because, again, I mean, I would find that as a highly challenging incident.
Sure.
Then I'm a nerd.
Sure.
I've watched thousands of YouTube videos and considered, what would I do here?
Yeah.
But then you have Johnny.
Yep.
And we're supposed to have rules and regulations and training that suits Johnny. And he's a lot, you know, better colleagues, but still they're not nerds. They just go to work, and like they have a couple of training every shift, like if you're full time, but that's rarely fire because everybody else we're doing. And then you go like, okay, what do I expect them to do? Like, oh, they should make the most optimal decision in every time. Like,
Yeah, but what does that mean to Johnny?
Yeah,
Johnny's like, I don't know what that means.
Like, unicorn land. Woof woof.
Yeah.
No, so you go like, okay, so you have this rule of thumb that, well, if it, you know, like in most cases, it's probably better to do fire attack. Sure. To get rid, at least try to get rid of the problem, and that wouldn't be best in all cases. But I think that like if you don't do that and have like a rule, no rule. Yeah. Like it would fall down because they would always go to, it's like a, you know, little league football. Everybody would just run after or soccer. Sure. everybody would just go to the soccer ball, and it was just.
Well, and so a lot of the times it ends up being okay because the victim is showing from the outside,
Yeah.
right? And so the firefighters and the people are not in danger
Yeah.
because they're not handling the problem.
Yeah.
But then you start to get into situations like fire attack is going inside. Let's say you're one engine,
Yeah.
you're one crew, and you're advancing the line down towards the fire, and you come across a victim in your path. Now it's not multiple crews, they're not outside.
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, okay, do I keep going and leave them right here? Do I stop? Do I say, I'm going to go ahead, you guys get the lady out? You know, what? Then it gets even more difficult because now you're inside and you're actively trying to fight the fire, but you find somebody.
Yeah.
And that's not uncommon either.
Well, not at all. I mean, in the flow path, it's fairly commonplace to find them between the fire and that. And my policy would be, I think that it was probably John McDonough who phrased this the best. Like a fire tech never ignores a victim, and search and rescue never ignores a fire. Like if you have a potential to search and rescue, if you have potential to close the door to the fire compartment, you should do it. Like, or if you have a water can, whip some water on it and try to suppress it, and then close the door. Like if you happen to find it, it's not your priority, but you can't ignore it. Now, a more interesting one. Let's say we there was a fire in like the first fire in Sweden was like a disco. A lot of kids died and so on. And if I tweak the scenario a little bit, like just there was a problem because they were trying to escape. It was 90s maybe, so 20, 30 years ago. But they tried to escape and basically jammed the door. I was just packed with people.
Yeah, like the Station nightclub.
Yeah, like the Station nightclub. It's very similar to Station nightclub. But just this, if you just tweak the scenario, say let's arrive to fire. There's multiple persons lying here. Like there's 90 persons or whatever in a fairly large space, and that was maybe a little bit larger than the Station nightclub or something. And then you arrive and you get to the first person, and there's a fire in the back. Like now it's more like, okay, should I pull that guy out or that girl out?
Right.
Like that if I pull one out, I'm pretty beat up. Maybe I can pull one more, and then the fire is going to be that bad, and the rest is gone.
Sure.
So do I take a known victim, or do I just crawl over everybody and try to put the fire out and ventilate and hope that most people would survive?
Yeah.
Now now we're into the extremes.
Sure.
Like,
but it happens.
It will happen to someone, and that would be a more one. I think the normal one would be if you find a victim, you take them out. Like the known victim. Unless you again go into the extremes, like if you go and say then there's somebody outside saying, like I have 10 people in there, and then you find the first one. Now it might be like, look, I'm just going to ignore that. Do fire attack, ventilate, because that's the highest probability that I would save more people.
Sure, and I mean it also gets back to your training, your comfort with your crew.
Yeah.
There's very rarely going to be one guy on the nozzle by himself inside.
No, one can take them out and you can go forward.
The nozzle operator can keep going forward, and then the second person can take the victim out. That's probably ideal.
We would, if it was me, I would just break rules and do that.
Sure.
Because
well, and a lot of times for us, when there's a victim, the rules,
But our rules would still apply.
Your rules can go away a little whenever there's a victim.
But the funny part is our rules is that they don't really have a consequence.
Okay.
Like I've never heard anyone who's broken rules, which happens all the time.
Okay.
There's like no discipline. Like because the rule is intended for the employer.
Sure.
To make sure that there's enough training and make sure they follow procedure. Now, maybe in some level, if you break a rule, the employer would say, like, you're not following our procedures, we'll fire you. I've never heard of that. Maybe that's possible, but it's not like, you broke a law, you're in jail.
Do you guys do any sort of debrief?
Oh, yeah.
So we do they call it a hot wash.
Yeah.
But we do it before anyone leaves the fire.
Oh,
so all of the company officers and the incident commander get together at the end.
At scene or
at the scene,
and
before anybody leaves, and you just talk about it. Who did what went well, what didn't go well, who broke policy, why'd you break policy. So that kind of stuff tends to come up then.
And some of the breaks you go like, good job. If it was a good one,
It
or
depends, right?
bad job.
Can you defend it?
Yeah.
And did you communicate it?
Yeah.
And if not, then that's not good, and you'll get told.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah, I hope so. And we have, I mean, we have a lot of those, and as I've been pushing it, how to do it is just in their case, the officer doesn't go inside. Like that's a big change in America. People in America go,
Yeah. Yep.
but which there's pros and cons. Like, because that would be someone on the outside have to do command.
Sure.
We agree on that. But the difference is that when we arrive for more officers, we don't support one for interior command and one for exterior command or tactical or strategy or whatever it might be. We just have more mushrooms on the outside.
That is one thing that I I like about our system a lot is that there is a focus and really structure in place there for command. But the first unit that gets there, if it's an engine, everyone goes inside, including the officer, and they'll have command from the inside. But they know that less than 2 minutes later, there's going to be a chief there that's taking command from them, or assuming command. And then at that point, you've got eyes on the outside. And I don't think anybody can maintain command on the inside for the duration of the incident, because you don't have your senses, you can't see the building.
That's impossible.
You don't know what's going on.
Or not recommended.
Yeah, sure. And so what I like about the structure that we have is that.
But you can go inside before the animal arrives.
Again, if you have a 2 out.
Yeah.
Or if there's a known life hazard. So we get to the 2 out pretty quickly. Even before a chief gets there, because you'll have an engine and a truck get there. It's like, hey, the engine, I've got command. The truck's got 2 out.
Because I know for some places I've understood that you can't take inside command or go inside before someone else establish outside command.
Not for us.
No.
Yeah.
But I've just heard that, like,
sure.
you're not allowed to go inside.
There are places that do that.
Yeah.
Yep. And as long as it's an engine, because again, our focus is getting water on the fire as soon as possible. If you're a ladder truck or a rescue squad, you're taking a different type of command and you're not going inside right yet, because again, our focus is water. We don't want you guys inside messing anything up or doing anything.
Destroying it or breaking it.
Let's slow down a couple seconds. The engine's going to be here right now. But so as more chief officers arrive there, we always put a second chief in the car, so there would always be 2 of us. It helps with the computer, with writing, with talking to people at the window, talking on the radio. But then typically, we still get more chiefs. So then typically after that, then we start assigning chiefs inside the building. So if there's a fire on the 2nd floor and you have 2 engines and a truck on the 2nd floor, we'll then put a chief on the 2nd floor, and the chief will be in charge of all 3 of those. So then whenever I need to have a message, I just, ask Division 2, and Division 2 is a chief, and he's responsible for all of those units. So it helps with the span of control some, and assignment of responsibilities, and now there's command and control inside and outside. But again, that's because we're just too resource rich, which is, we're lucky in that sense.
And to be fair, I mean, we have the same philosophy. You assign sectors and the sector chiefs, and you have someone, and you have probably some operations chiefs, and behind that you can have a support chief that do analysis or whatever it might be needed, or logistics or water or whatever it might be needed. So you assign different sectors. But the difference is, which I think is wrong. Especially when we get to more complicated fires. I don't have a big problem with us, like the initial response, that the fire officer stays outside and the firefighters go inside and they do their job of doing fire attack or search and rescue. I mean, that's all about I think that's all about training. If you train your firefighters to be independent in doing that job, I mean, I don't see a problem with it. Whereas the problem is when you arrive in more resources, more command units, and more officers, that we maintain that outside approach all the time, and we don't make sure that we get more eyes on the fire from an officer perspective. Like just a simple one, if you go to more advanced fire, like a warehouse or in the industry or something, where you're going to be there for half an hour, 2 hours, or 5 hours, like as an incident commander, you just put on a pack, go in there, get eyes on the fire for 2 minutes, get like an orientation of how it looks like, then get out again and resume command again, just so that you're taking decisions not based on secondhand information.
Sure. And
Like-
we've had conversations about that recently. You know, typically the command in our system is always stationary and it's
Yeah.
inside the car.
Yeah.
You know, not even getting out of the car.
Yeah, blue card's like you cannot get out of
Right.
the car.
So we're not at all blue
Yeah,
card.
I know, but like blue
but
card is like
it's
strict.
a similar setup.
Yeah.
But then we've had conversations recently of, you know, when are there situations where it makes sense for you to just get out because you can't get that little piece of information
Yeah.
that you're like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of times where the second command officer can be that huge support role,
Yeah.
take over talking on the radio for a minute. And it's like,
Yeah.
hey, I know you just got here. This is what's going on. You got it. I need to do a walk around the building
Yeah.
real quick because, you know, there's a bump out in the back and it drops down a change in grade. And, okay, now I got
Now
it.
I got it,
Now I
yeah.
can go back and we can finish this.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, I think in Swedish, our command philosophy is just like drill that out. Like it's not, there's nothing preventing you from doing
Sure.
it. Like legislatively, it's just like you don't do that.
Sure. Yeah,
Why?
yeah, yeah.
You don't do that. but I mean, it's this, of course, reinforcement that span of control. Like the closer
Sure.
you get to the incident, the more tunnel vision
Yep.
you get. But you know, I look at, and I would like our officers to be more like a JoJo. Like you throw it out, you go in there and you bounce out again. You think,
Yep.
you know, like something going on, and then you go in there and check, you know, or do something and come back. Like this, you can in abstract level, you can go into the fire and look at the detail, and you can go back out again.
Sure.
Are we doing the same thing? I would like our officers to do more of that. So I think that in Sweden, with our philosophy that officers stay outside to maintain that overall picture, that there's a happy middle road.
Now, are your officers just who is showing up on the appliance, or do you have chief officers that are coming not with a crew?
Yeah.
It's just the chief.
Both. So,
Okay.
so I mean, a crew commander would be an officer, or
Okay.
So your crew commander on an engine, for instance. And again, for us, it would be you typically have one crew commander for a station. That could be an engine and a ladder.
Okay.
So there would be one officer for both those vehicles because we don't have truck officer and,
Sure.
and crew officer most of the time. So again, that would be one crew for one station and another crew commander for another station, or captain, or call it whatever you like. But then we would have the equivalent to like a battalion chief.
Yep.
And it depends, different in Sweden, but the region I worked before, we would typically get two battalion chiefs on everything more than like 4 engines or 3
Sure.
engines.
Okay.
So you would have at least two, because there's a lot, then you have probably 3 crew commanders or captain, then you have two battalion chiefs. So one of the battalion chief would do incident command, the other one would be probably in a supportive role to that. And then you would have 3 captains doing probably different sectors.
Okay.
Sector inside, sector backside, or sector whatever it might be.
I mean, it's a very similar setup. The only thing that's different is we don't separate the crew commander from the crew.
No.
You know, our crew commander's always with the crew.
Yeah.
And then it's the chief officers that are taking
Yeah.
those sectors or divisions. But I
No.
mean, it's the same principle.
Yeah, same principle. Again, and I would love. I think that the small, and there's many ways that work, but I think that our system would benefit from having more people on the inside that just looks and go like devil's advocate and
Sure.
so on.
They're not engaged in a task.
They're not
per se.
engaged in a task.
Right.
Their task.
Their
is
job
to,
is
yeah,
eyes.
Yeah, their job is eyes. Look at
Yeah.
things. What's happening? What's doing? Are we doing the right thing?
Sure.
Reporting, because there's too much information on the inside too. Like you're
Yeah.
busy. Like you're moving hose line water, you're breathing heavily, you're searching.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
there's
Do
not,
I have water? Is it going in the right
Yeah.
place?
what's happening and
Is
so
the
on.
fire getting better?
Yeah.
Is it getting worse? I don't even know what's going on
No, I
over
have
here
no idea,
or
like-
what the ladder truck is doing.
And
So
somebody's-
having that extra
yeah.
set of eyes is huge.
Yeah, if someone goes like, have you looked at stability of the roof? Look like what? Like I haven't timed it. That's just
Yeah.
there's just black everywhere, and
Sure.
And so having that, I think that's one of the things I would like to change. But in Sweden, I think that one of the things that we had, Brunesen has been a huge impact on the Swedish. His old books like that
Okay.
formed a lot of European also the way of looking at management and command.
Sure.
So Brunellini has been a huge impact on command here. So, but we also have a lot of influence from the military, which is in Sweden also different towards like the rank structure. Sweden is a lot more flat authority. Like we as a society, it might be more of an authority problem. Like we don't like. We as maybe it's a culture. I have no problem with it. I would like more of a UK version, but we don't have the same rank structure. The hard.
Okay.
It is a rank structure usually, but it's very like. If you go on a dinner table in a Swedish fire station, you have no idea who's the fire chief and who's the firefighter. Oh. Like you can't see it on the social interactions. You can't see it on their clothes or something. It's very informal. Like you have no problem with a firefighter going inside the office or the fire chief of that department going like, oh, hey, how's your day? Or like, what are you doing the weekend? Or like, I don't like the new truck we have here. Like,
I'm not going to do that.
But it's very informal, which has benefits, but it's also definitely drawbacks. So it's that one. But if you look at on the incident command ground, it's much more of a. It's not a debate, but much more reasoning going on, and that makes a lot of sense. I like our command structure and command system and culture at difficult fires. Because you always see there's a contract officer they're discussing like, well, we have to do this and this, and it could be a firefighter standing there like discussing, oh, we should do this and this. It's very much like reasoning at like best level. That doesn't work the first 5 or 10 or maybe 15 minutes of the incident.
Right.
Because like there's no time just standing there like, oh. Like, so I like that, but I would like us to be, if I had a more wish, I would like us to be way more American the first 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then we can revert back to our Swedish more.
Well, and at that point, it's a bigger incident.
Yeah,
you know, it's a more complex problem.
Yeah,
it's going to take longer.
And
there's more resources, and you have time, right, to try and all right, what is the best way to handle the situation?
It's that one, but I would like to do that, but there's a lot to do.
Both worlds.
Yeah. Now I want to go back to, so we talked about search, we talked about what's the most prioritized place, and we didn't really finish off that one. We talked about like low, medium, high, for instance, or close to the fire, far away from the fire. So let's go back to that. That's second floor, fire in a bedroom. Let's say, let's take this scenario. You arrive, you go up the stairs, and you see you see the tick, you see the flow from the gas coming from that direction. You can probably say the fire's over there, and you also remember the layout from the outside. The fire's over there. And you see an open space here, and there's some doors here. You probably, like maybe a bathroom or another bedroom. So do you go to the bedroom hoping to find a door to isolate the fire, or do you start the search?
If I'm all on the same level, so let's say I want to search the bedrooms, and it's a bedroom fire and we're on that floor. Right now, I would probably say I would go towards the bedroom, and I would try and see if there was a way to isolate the fire, because we know isolation is not just for the victim, or for me. If I can isolate the fire, that also means it's going away. Or I've bought myself
probably
time. Sure. So in that case, if I can tell that it looks like it's isolated towards the room, I would probably try and do that, and then naturally you're going to start close to the fire and work your way back.
But would that be, is there something in your SOPs that, like for a rescue squad, that isolation, try to isolate the fires is a priority?
No.
There's not. That would be an individual.
Not in the SOP. No. That would just be something based on the training of the crew, and if that's a priority or an expectation of the officer, which it should be.
Yeah.
But then again, at the same time, we're also in an environment where by the time I am masked up, get to the second floor, and I start searching, there's going to be an engine company there with me.
Yeah, probably.
So
they go left,
a lot
and you
of
go right.
times, it's not even a thought of, let me try and go isolate the fire, because there's an engine either right in front of me or right behind me, and they're going to go put the fire out. So in that case, if they're going to go left and take up the hallway, putting out the fire, they're also going to be searching it naturally while they're there. We'll go right.
And search the open space or close doors.
Sure. But depends on the system, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do when you're the only crew?
Yeah, when you're on the crew. Let's say you were an engine company.
Yeah.
In that situation, you come up the hallway, but now you got a hose line. Now you would.
We're going left.
We're going left for the fire, knock the fire down, try to isolate as fast as possible.
Sure.
So let's say you turn left, get some water on that hallway or whatever it might be, and then you turn right into the bathroom. You whip it around a little bit. You got knocked down. There's a door to that room. Would you hydraulically vent? Because there's some options here. So you can either continue to suppress it, which probably is not a good idea because it's enough suppressed so you can leave it. But the other option is you can start hydraulically vent, like you start with a fog or whatever, and you give that 20 seconds, 30 seconds to start improve the environment throughout the structure, especially through that hallway. But that's 30 seconds you take away from search, or something else. Or you can just close the door, so you isolate away the problem, but you still have a lot of smoke in the house. But you know what I mean, it's better than before, and then you start searching. Or do you close the door and then break another window and hydraulically vent?
It depends, right?
But now you choose.
I mean, I think I would say that you'd have the nozzle operator by himself take care of hydraulically venting. I mean, we see how much air those hose streams move.
It's a massive amount of air.
And if you've got that thing on a narrow fog and you've got it going out a window, if you want to hydraulically ventilate even more, put the cone a little bit smaller, but then whip it in an O, and do that in the opening. You know, you're going to just suck air out of that entire floor. If you've got, you should have one more person, right? Maybe you have two. Then the rest of the people can go search. And you can also open up windows. You can, do whatever you need to do. Right.
So that's the thing. I think that's been a problem also, and I wanted to correct. Like, take those 30 seconds, or maybe even more, but at least those 30 seconds from one person if the other one can search. Spend that, because that's really wisely spent 30 seconds.
It moves so much air. It doesn't make sense not to do it.
And then we reduce the amount of poisonous gas, especially in the flow path, of course. But especially if we have two breaches, they can start opening more windows, and we get more flow paths. So we even more from other areas. And
because so, now at that point you're drawing in fresh air because you're pulling so much out that room.
And even in my context, what I would see ideally is our pump operator. One of the first priorities they have after making sure they got hose line is to put a fan in place. Because then our standard operating procedure would be, as soon as they have knockdown, the fan's going to be started. As soon as they have knockdown and established an outlet, you're going to have the fan starting up, and then you have.
So you're PPV, not PPA.
No, not PPA. The simple reason I have for not doing PPA is if you have an outlet, you can get water in. If you get water in, it's not PPA anymore. It's just PPV. Like in most cases, I mean, you can have a fire on the 8th floor and you can't get water in. But in most cases, when you can break a window due to outlet, or you have an outlet, you can get water in. It's not PPA anymore. It's just PPV. I know we'd be supporting on doing that same as the transitional attack. But anyway, depending on many factors, but generally. But if you do that, then you have the nozzle person starting to do a hydraulic event. You give that 30 seconds, so you would boost that with the fan. And now as soon as that one would start to, and maybe the second person on the nozzle crew would start opening more windows to support that flow. As soon as they stop that one, you would revert many of the other flow paths now to become outlets. And you continue. So it would be just supporting of that. But
I think so the piece that I think is missing for a lot of folks is that can all be done with a single crew.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, it doesn't take a very resource-rich department to accomplish all of those things.
Not at all.
And it's how do you train to be the most effective and efficient engine company you can be? You know, you're searching at the same time. You know, if you find a victim, that you keep putting the fire out, but maybe one guy brings the victim. You get the fire knocked down. You know, you're isolating as you go. You get the fire knocked down. The one guy is going to hydraulically ventilate. Just keep doing it. You know, the other folks that are on the crew will search. You got a guy setting up a fan at the door. Hey, we got knocked down. Turn the fan in. Fan gets turned in. You know, I mean, you can be extremely dialed in and effective as a single crew, you know, which lends itself to the majority of the United States, where you're showing up with, you know, one crew and you're there by yourself for a period of time.
That should be. I mean, that kind of incident. Majority of those incidents should be, ventilation should be going within maximum 5 minutes from entry. That would be, I would say, for most cases, because
and that's the assumption and the hope that the water is on the fire by then.
But they said like you should get to the point where you have water on the fire, hydraulic ventilation started, and that could be a cue also. If you're on the outside, let's say you're standing there with a fan, your pump operator, you still need to be out there. You're not doing that much.
Right.
So you're standing there, you would go like, now hydraulic ventilation starts, that gives me a cue that put the fan on, it's ready to go. Like that could be an instant.
And if you don't have personnel or resources to go start opening the rest of the building, you could do it from the outside.
Yeah, now you can start.
But as soon as there's water on the fire, get every window in the place open.
Yeah.
You know, if water's on the fire, you probably don't need to break them. You can probably take time and open them. But unless get everything as open as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
That's the way you're making things better quickly.
Yeah. And that one also the things from your study, I think, like massively ventilate rather than sequentially, and do it, like everything. Let's just give everything open. And again, it's important. I think that
it's crazy how quick things return to ambient.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And especially if you have that, I think that the combination of hydraulic and fan assisted, it's just so much better than either one of them alone.
Sure.
Like you have this, it's probably a 200% increase in what you can push out. And then you of course move around, and if you want to support another, let's say it's a more complicated house. So the first path is pretty much empty fairly fast, but then you have a stubborn part over here. Mm-hmm. Oh, you just move that hose line around, put it in that place.
Yeah, for sure.
And you move that one there.
Yep.
And again, I think but what is hard is that you have to really convince people that at least put one person that moves around with the hose line doing hydraulic is worth the time that person not searching.
Sure.
Just because you're improving environment that fast. So the single firefighter, or if it's a team, they can spend safer, faster, and even if they don't find the persons and they're in open space, you're starting to make the environment better, so you increase survivability.
And well, and that's just further education into the concept that fire attack, trumps search in a lot of cases because of that. We want to focus on fire attack because that's what's taking the problem away. And if we do effective fire attack, we can search a lot easier and quicker, and conditions in the house are getting better. You're going to even have more visibility because now you've taken the smoke and put it outside.
Yeah. But that's it is a fairly hard one to get across, because as soon as you say that you're going to prioritize another task over search,
sure,
like that's by default wrong.
Well, and I'm the search guy. Like if it would offend somebody, that would offend me.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like when you're looking at the bigger picture, that in a sense is a part of search. I'm making things better.
Yeah. It's like the same goal with me. Like my primary, it doesn't matter if it's search and rescue. It's a rescue in there if I know it's like no people. Not going to go into discussion if there's nobody in there or not.
Sure.
In my context, if there's the same person outside and they say the building is empty, we deem it to be empty. I don't have a problem with that. I know a lot of people do have. But anyway, regardless if it's rescue or not, my first priority is I want to get to ventilation. Because everything from safety, but like if we have smoke, we have a problem with flashovers and everything. If we have smoke with cancerous substances, if we have smoke, we have the problem finding where to go. If we have smoke, we can't see the structural elements and so on. The smoke is the problem, right? But as we know, if you ventilate too soon, it might just turn to shit.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of times it won't. But you just don't really know.
Well, that's that 95 and 5.
Yeah,
right?
You just don't know. And if you don't know...
What percentage of the incident are you planning for?
And you're doing it for Johnny again.
Yeah.
So you want to have water in the fire. So when you say, I want to prioritize fire attack, it's also that goal like, but ventilation is important. Yes, that's why we do fire attack.
Well, and I think at least in our system, you know, it's become one of these things where ventilation is happening secondary.
Yeah.
But what's really talked about is fire attack and search.
Yeah.
You know, where it used to be fire attack, ventilation, and search, all three in the same priority umbrella. But now it's, well, we really need to get water on the fire. That's going to make things better.
Yeah.
And we also have people, so let's hurry up and get in there and search.
Yeah. But I was going to go like, if you do a quick fire attack, let's do it from outside. And that would cue you to start ventilation earlier, which would make your search faster.
Sure.
And all of those are good for firefighters too,
Yeah.
for cancerous substances, for everything. So you have this, I think, a very attractive package of saying it makes a lot of sense to knock the fire down.
And what's funny, if you want to, you know, throw this word in there, that's aggressive.
Absolutely.
That is being the most aggressive you
Yeah.
can be, is get water as quickly as possible, get the structure ventilated as quickly as possible, get inside, clear every single space within there.
And most of the, I would say those who would classify themselves, I'm sorry if I'm offending everyone here, but classify themselves as, you know, aggressive firefighters, they would agree that, you know, like water on the fire, like those, you know, like, I think that Andrew Fredericks was a phenomenal firefighter, which he was. He was a fantastic guy. I ordered his latest book. There's like a collection book somebody made. Ordered that one. I probably read all the articles, but it was like a collection. They made an actual hard copy book. I'm going to read it. Yeah. But anyway, so Andrew Fredericks, it was, what was his priority? Like water on the fire as fast as possible.
Sure.
Now there was discussion about how that, like, if, you know, he was a straight stream guy or a solid stream guy, like, but like get water on the fire as fast as possible because that's good for search and rescue and ventilation. And I think that there's very few today that would say that fire attack is not a high priority for everything we do on the fire ground.
And that's good. It's progress.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I don't know if, I don't know where the biggest, I think that in Sweden the resistance was that you didn't do the mental, you didn't do that simple mental exercise of what is the objective, which is saving lives, does not necessarily dictate the task of search.
Yeah, fair.
It could be task of that.
Right. There are multiple ways to skin
you
a cat.
you just conflicted goal with task. Goal is rescue. That's why we go there. Because then we go like, but we want to search there. Yeah, we'll go there and do fire attack.
Well, and that breaks down with the training and who's translating it. You know, if the training message that gets put across is, my focus is the victim.
Yeah.
Most of the time, we can do fire attack and victim at the same time.
Yeah, of course, that's
Sometimes
the optimal. Yeah.
we can only do one.
Yeah.
But hey, fire attack also makes it better for the victim.
I think
if that's talked about from the beginning, then I think you don't have the issue anymore.
And a lot of departments, you know, like have a luxury problem that they don't have to pick.
Sure.
But I think that's a problem too.
It can be.
If they don't have like a clear policy of, we know that we have a luxury, we can do both. We can do, like, you get sloppy.
Sure.
That sometimes when things happen, your priorities are not straight.
Yep.
Like sometimes you need 4, like when you go to like a residential, like a commercial fire or something, you need 4 crews on the fire. So all 4 crews have to go to the fire to be able to knock that down. And then maybe it's the 5th crew that can do search and rescue.
Sure.
Because we have our priorities straight. We need first priority fire attack. Because if you don't solve that, everything turns to shit.
Yeah, right.
And that could be 4 units or 5 units.
Sure.
And if you have that, like, oh, I'm a truck company or I'm a second-due engine company, I know, like, I'm not going to do fire attack. I'm always going to do search and rescue. And I think that's where you're going to have that 5% of fires start to break down.
Well, and everybody in the resource-rich, you know, luxury systems, if you will, has to have that understanding.
Yeah,
you know,
you can't get away from it.
I know that all I need to worry about is search.
Yeah.
But that's not because that's the only thing that's important. That's because I know there's 20 people here that are doing that right now.
But let's say you're most of the resource as secondary fire. You get a new fire call. You're just one to rise. Now it's 10 minutes until next one rise.
Now we're into the 5%.
Yeah.
Right. Now is where I need to think. Wait a minute. There's nobody here doing something about the fire. Get the can. We need to go try and close the door, and then do something about the searching of the building. But you have to be able to have that thought.
You bring a fire blanket and a staple gun.
Yeah.
And you go now made a seal.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
No.
I mean, we're not in there.
You're isolating.
You're isolating. You have a portable door. You don't have the smoke blocker is a great tool. Like
Sure.
the smoke blocker, the portable one. But I mean, that's a cost of purchase. But everyone has you can put a fire blanket. It costs like $20 in a staple gun.
Sure.
Like a rural department, it makes total sense.
Yeah, for sure.
As soon as you have a water problem, you just cut through a window, and you maybe the fire compartment, you slow it down and so on. But that could be like if you run up the high rise, and you maybe do rescue, you have a can, you blow a can, but the burn is you maybe knock down. It gives you a fantastic possibility with a can, or a dry can like that. Mm-hmm. If you knock that down, but the door, you can't close the door. There is no door or something.
Sure.
Like the most effective thing you can do, instead of going back there and let the fire go up, would be to take the fire blanket and just go cut.
Yeah, well, and so what we've learned is that a lot of like inner city urban departments, they teach very heavily to isolate the fire.
Yeah.
We just spent some time up with the guys in New York, and they talk about how their truck companies focus on isolating the fire.
Yeah.
Right. Like we're going to get in and we're going to close the door we're going to get down that hallway. We're going to close the door to the fire room. I was like, well, what if it doesn't have a door? Like we're going to go get a door off another room.
Yeah, I've seen a training video.
Because curtains, aren't as prevalent, at least, a lot of the larger systems in the U.S. But so there is still the thought process, which is good.
I have a video from France where they do that in a staircase.
Okay.
There's this fire blowing out of an apartment, like burnt through the door, and Paris has a shitty. I mean, if there's got fire in one apartment, you got smoke in everyone because old buildings, they leak and everything.
Sure.
So it's a major problem like that. But then so the fire out in the staircase, and they actually bring a door and they place it. They just fire shooting out.
Yeah.
They're not wearing the BAs. It's very very good. Like Paris is pretty hardcore.
Sure, that's good logic, right?
Oh,
it's sound logic.
Oh, it's sound logic. I was just go like, it takes some time to take a door from another place, and there's low visibility.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy to do this, but the concept is solid. Like that could be the most important thing.
And at least people are thinking about it.
Yeah, and that's cool. I mean, Braidwood thought about it too, but it didn't.
Fair.
But it didn't like it's so important, but it didn't. I think it was it's laziness is the most important reason why we stopped doing things. Like when we get SCBA, we get comfortable.
Sure.
Now we don't have to be as
PPE with a higher TPP.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't have to isolate the fire. It doesn't really matter if it pumped more smoke out. And we kind of forgot about it, like we have SCBAs, but people don't.
Sure.
Like we're trying to rescue. I think that's just laziness. It was just easier. Now we can operate in that environment. Doesn't mean we should.
Yeah, we don't have to do as much work now.
No, it's just like it didn't, and we didn't really notice maybe that the level of. I don't think we kind of reflected on how bad it was because we were so shielded.
Sure.
And the whole concept of steam is not a discussion like that could relate in that also, but especially for poisonous gases, like we didn't have to operate on the skill level as the ones who didn't have SCBA did.
Sure. And it created a huge gap.
Yeah.
And now we're finally swinging the other way where everything is drilled in at the recruit level.
Yeah.
But there's still that gap of folks in the middle that the time at which PPE was, improved, that SCBA came about, where a lot of the stuff tended to fall off.
So we're gonna wrap up soon, but to follow up on that question, I have back in the old days, back in the old days, it was not long ago, but now it's more uncommon. But the thought of keeping your ears out because you want to feel the heat, I don't agree with that one, but because of that body part, it's not a good one.
Sure.
But let's take another one. Let's take another one. You take your glove and you fold it off, so you have the back side of your hand exposed. Like I said, if you go into a fire and you do that, let's just ignore cancerous substances for this time. Let's just ignore that one because that would be an argument to close it down as well. Let's just ignore that one. So, but we have this discussion about assessing what you go into stereo visibility. What cues do you have? Let's take away the tick just for now. Okay, you can't see anything. You're not going to see pyrolysis, heat buildup. You're not even see flames in ceiling because you can't even see them.
Sure.
Like you can't see anything. So you have hearing. Okay, so you have crackling going up, maybe a sign of things getting worse. It can also be like it's getting muffled because you get tons of soot and stuff. Like you get all muffled, so you can't really hear it. So you're pretty much blind as a bat. So then you take your tick up, and then you have the problems with the tick. I mean, a fantastic tool for orientation. I also say it's fantastic because it gives an indication of, oh, there's a lot of color up there. I probably should do something about it.
Sure.
Like there's an indicator of something going bad, and you can see flows and so on. But now, let's say you don't have a tick, like because a lot of places in the world don't have ticks. Do you think it's a bad idea to go in here and go like, now I get an early indicator, go like, it was fairly cold back there, but getting hot as hell right now. Like that's my indicator of maybe I should go forward without a hose line. Maybe I should start cooling if I have a hose line.
So you ignore cancer?
I ignore cancer.
Then it's probably not that bad of an idea in the sense that you still had an entire generation of people that focused on what do my ears tell me? Do my ears tell me that I need to do something?
Yeah.
That didn't come about from nothing. That gave them information that allowed them, to choose different things. We've learned since, that that's probably not a good thing to do for a variety of reasons.
Yeah,
but I mean,
you like your ears. But I mean, you want to be able to fold that one because you want to go deeper in.
Right.
But that would just be an indication of if you haven't started, for instance, cooling, or if you haven't thought about, what am I getting into if I do search and rescue with a hose line, now is really the time to think about it one more time.
Well, and I think we're getting to a place where flowing water is coming sooner, and where, when in doubt, flow water. And I think when there's zero visibility, that's when doubt starts to increase, right? I can't see anything, so what's going on? Let's flow water. And I think at the end of the day, we're kind of getting to the point where we see that, flowing water is not doing bad things. Let's just flow water. And then I think you eliminate the need to ever even
you still have
like
an entire search. You can have search and rescue without a hose line on the second floor, and there was fire extension and so on.
Sure.
So you still have. I mean, I'm asking. That's not really a problem for us because we also have. Everyone has a tick. We're probably about that. Both firefighters have ticks in a very short period in everyone, and we also have a hose line. So it's really not for us. It's like when you have a tick, you're then you have some kind of census.
So it's for the folks that don't have the tools.
It's just someone asks you,
including water.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it might also be like if you have someone who's go like, well, we don't have much water, or we're afraid of water. And I go said like, sure, you do that. And if you have, I have no problem having latex gloves below my gloves. Like I'm going like I do a priority. Do I want cancer? Which is likely, or do I think it's going to be that hard that I melt the latex that's on my skin?
Sure.
Well, I go like, that's like almost impossible because my skin cools it off. Sure, if my skin goes above melting point of latex,
you have other problems.
I have other problems. I mean, it's not good to get melted, but so I have no problem with latex gloves. I mean, I know that goes against the rules, and somebody go like,
yeah.
But I have that every time I train, and if I remember it, or if I had the opportunity to do this at a real fire, I would do so too. So then you could fold it back and have an exposed. I don't have a problem with that. Again, it's like if radiant heat hits it, it's not going to be hotter than my hand anyway. So before it melts, I will fold it out and go like, I'll just keep that on.
Flow some water.
I'll just keep that on and start flowing water. But also, I mean, it is like if we have only one tick and it doesn't work, you get down to like a parking garage fire, like heavy soot from car tires. The tick just goes. You can't see anything.
Completely white.
Yeah, you can't for two reasons. You can't see the tick. And the tick can't see anything because you see the particles. So then you're left with, okay, so how do I assess the situation? It might not be super hot. It's just dense, packed with smoke.
Can't see. Where do we go? What do we do?
Yeah, but if I have a latex glove, I'm just saying it can fold it back and go like, okay, now I have one more sense. Because the overall sense of me getting hot is just such a slow indicator of I'm saturated with heat.
Yeah, then it's too late. Then you can't tell what else is happening.
No. It might have been hot over there. but it starts feeling hot over here, and I go like, I need to get back down there.
And maybe that's going to
and
an area that's worse.
That's the flow. That's where
Right.
it gets worse. So you have that. I have this exercise I usually do with people. I just make a very simple one because people don't understand that. I just make the hallway and the fire in the middle from the fire compartment, and then just the flow out, and then make the flow go. Put a fan on in the room to push it diagonally over that hallway.
Okay.
So there's a flow going that way. Zero visibility, but the flow goes that way. And I just have people go through that flow. They feel it, and they have you can also just bring a thermometer, and they go through it, and they look at it just like holding a thermocouple.
Yeah, sure.
The thermometer wouldn't feel that well if just holding a thermocouple. And then you look at data, it'll go like, and they would really feel, and you can expose the hand and go, I feel like oh, massive difference, get out of the thermal flow, and it feels better. Just to make them understand that there's a huge difference where you are, and you won't feel it on your body because it's such a delay in the result.
And that's one of the biggest things that I think that was eye-opening to me as we started to do more experiments, and I was able to build on the experience, inside, is learning how much of a fine line it is between okay and really, really bad.
Sharp.
I mean, and you can even look at the damage post-fire,
Yeah.
right? Like here is a line in the carpet, and right here it's all completely melted and gone, and right here is pristine white plush carpet. And it's like, man, if you were just right here, you would have been
toast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or you would have been
toast,
toast, right?
And that's, I think that's one of the concepts so easy, like with a candle. Because if you start, take a normal candle, you have people feel like there's a candle flame here. First, you start feeling the same. Look, I can have 2,000 degrees here Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And I hold my hand literally
As
half an inch away from it.
Yep.
Go like, you have a difference of 2,000 degrees on half an inch. And then you go up in the thermal flow here. You go like, I can hold my hand here.
Versus this.
Yeah, I go like, it's a massive difference.
Sure.
It's one of those things you go like, boom,
right?
Understand it. But then you go on the drill ground, you really experience in full scale, and you understand that, well, my senses through the fire gear are so slow that I have no idea how to pick up on those small nuances.
Sure.
I just feel I'm saturated after a while. I didn't know because I was like, oh, hot, cold, hot, cold. I'll stay in the cold,
right?
If I have the chance,
right?
You just have to know that, and that's why it's so hard. Like on an exercise, you find students sitting in the fire compartment training, and they're sitting inside the opening,
sure,
where all the flows are going, and they're sitting there because they don't know they're saturating their stuff with heat. They have to intellectually know, get out of the flow path while you're waiting or whatever you do.
Well, and then it's also the concept that it's not the same throughout the entire room.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you take this room right here, the door right there, and a door right here, I'm going to go right over there. Yeah.
Get out of that.
But I think it's lost. Like, well, the whole room is going to be the same.
I think that's reinforced. I'm not saying you're doing it wrong. It's not everything else, but it's reinforced when you say, oh, well, that room is blah 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 blah. So
sure.
Like, have you looked at exactly where the thermometer is positioned?
Yeah. Right.
And you see that when you correlate, like, the thermometer might be here, but the oxygen sensor is over there, and you see these massive discrepancies go like. Oxygen goes down over there, but temperature keeps rising. You have these discrepancies. Sure. If they were at the exact same place, you would have different. They would correlate more, like in temperature and so on.
Yep.
So you have these massive differences, and I think that also like ventilation controlled fire go like, well, first off, it's probably not a ventilation controlled house. It's a ventilation controlled room or maybe rooms. Like you have 21% of oxygen in closed rooms, and you probably have. On the floor over at the other side of the house is probably 20 or even 21. Like there's massive differences. And then even if you go into the fire compartment, you go like, yeah, sure, up here, but down here you probably have 15, maybe even 16, 17, 18 on the floor, and you start mixing that around, you have fire again.
Sure.
And those concepts are also hard to get across. And we're making this simplified statement saying that, oh, it's a ventilation control fire until you mix it around. Then it's not. And do that. And that's also hard to bring across that you, again, those massive differences in temperature and flammable range inside a space. We should come back to. I think there's like the candle is still, you just go like, what's inside the candle? You go like, that's the ventilation controlled place here.
Yeah.
Like there's too much
Put a
fuel.
mesh screen over it.
Yeah, that's just
It's a
that's a ventilation control fire.
Yeah.
Would you say that? No, because you don't look specifically at the inside. You look at a bigger
Sure.
picture.
In a box.
Yeah, and look like and then you put the small candles on in a glass, and you go like, now it's the ventilation control fire when it starts to die out.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, the entire room here, but it's ventilation control on the outside of the glass. No, so if that's you have this, but it's hard because most firefighters, or I would say most fire instructors, were never provided with the tools they need
Absolutely.
to convey
Yep.
those fairly simple. If you know them, everything is simple if you know them, but fairly simple concepts that make a huge difference in how people get buy-in
Yeah.
for behaviors.
Yep. If the instructor's not as knowledgeable or competent in teaching the subject, the student doesn't buy in, even if they understand the concept sometime, right? It's like, well, he doesn't even seem like he really knows what he's talking about here. I don't know about this.
No, I mean, just look at myself. If I don't accept it, I'm not going to do it.
Sure.
I mean, we have a very non-strict compliance rule. I mean, it's basically the officer asks you, do you want to go up there and fight some fire? And you go like, yeah, sure, I can do that.
Yeah.
It's very soft. I mean, it still works, but it's very soft. But essentially what it means, and I think there's no difference, of course, the compliance ones, because you can't really force one to do something. They will do it when you look, but when they look away, they will do something else. So buy-in is, regardless of what system you have, so extremely important to get people to do it. And we talked a little about buy-in on the table. I don't know if you were there, but one thing that struck me was, I think this is the same here. Most people try to sell it with safety.
Yeah.
Which is like the worst.
Yeah.
It never works.
Mm-hmm.
Like the safety is just like safety is a side product of being efficient or good or effective.
Sure.
That's just the only way you can sell it. I know how many times people say, they go like, yeah, we're going to make it safer. And that's a lot of things pushed out from manufacturers and everything. They go like, do they even understand the fire service?
Oh, what's the fire service immediate response?
Yeah, I go like,
I'm worried about the victim.
Yeah.
You know, it's not my safety. I'm not concerned about my safety.
Yeah. And that goes for all. People go like, "Oh, that's the only the resistant to the UL studies." They say, look, that's everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody, pretty much everybody is going like, no, it's not safety. There's a lot of. It's a lot of organization that push safety like for the members or something like that. I don't understand why either. They don't understand it. Safety is a byproduct of being good.
Yeah.
Like so, you make it. If you make it better, like typically, if you make it better for the victim, you make it better for yourself. Like that's this. They just come from the side.
Yeah.
So with buy-in, that's the way. I remember when the Cobra coal cutter, like ultra high pressure, came to the station. We had it in 2000, I think in 2006 or something. And got it to my station when I started working. Oh god damn it! The firefighters was just pissed off. Because it was, first off, it was sold as a safety thing.
Okay.
Like if you can cool it from the outside. If you cool it from the outside, you don't have to go inside.
No thanks.
Yeah, but it was basically like, well, first off, we're not here to cool the fire. We're here to save the victim. And second one, like fuck you, I'm not going to be safe.
Sure.
Like that, they don't necessarily say that straight out, but that's what they're thinking and that's what they're saying in other words. And they try to justify that because they know that it's not really popular to say this to the boss, I don't want to be safe.
Yeah.
So they find excuses because they don't agree with it.
Sure.
So it's like a pseudo,
Sure.
They make a pseudo argument. So I remember that, and it took years and years and years before people start realizing that, well, what if I got a fire that's hard to access, for instance? Now, most of the things you do that for is for like like window, like attics and basements, unoccupied spaces, or what we deem unoccupied. But you have this mental exercise yourself. Well, let's say we have a hard-to-reach space. It might be a basement, and to go to the basement, you have to go basically through the outlet, and it's going to take us 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever it is, and that's a long time if we want to save a victim. Let's see if we could put the fire tank, like the straight stream to the basement, if we took the ultra-high pressure down there, that will be our cue to go like, yeah, we have good effect on that fire. We see that, and we maybe see a tick in the hallway. We see flow coming from the basement. We have impact. Now you just open everything up, ventilate, and now you can do the fastest for fire, like search and rescue on the first floor and second floor, rather than commit a first team to go through the basement, have a shit time going through the basement. So they go like, so it's not, I mean, safety was a side effect, but that scenario was like, now I get it. Now I could be faster at getting to the
more
point.
Effective.
Yeah, I could be more effective. I could be faster getting to the point of ventilation, and ventilation is the key, the primary key to success on search and rescue.
Sure.
But that took years.
Well, you're overcoming the safety.
Yeah, it took years.
The pitch.
Yeah. It was just like, for most departments in Sweden that bought the cold cupboard earlier, it sat on a fire truck, never used for the first 5 or 10 years.
Sure. Because
it was sold as a safety feature, and people didn't understand it, and they didn't understand water mist and so on, which is a whole different ballgame. I'm curious when UL is going to tackle the ultra high
We're getting
pressure.
international.
Yeah. I know. I mean, it's not common in the United States. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do research, because you want to find out what people are using and how to use this on. So it makes sense. But I really look forward to that, because there's tons of studies done in Sweden and so on. But there's loopholes. Mm-hmm. There's massive loopholes where we don't know. Like, you can knock down a barn with 20 gallons per minute, like a big barn, but we honestly don't know all the intricate details of that, and we don't know like where's the limit.
Sure.
I mean, we know that a barn, like a big barn, it could be fought with 20 gallons per minute. Like, we know that if you get the correct circulation or rotation of the stream and water and so on. So that would be nice, but to have that part, like when you combine like the basement study and so on, like the piercing nozzle part of it with the fire. I don't know. Do you do the fire coordination? Do you do any piercing nozzle in the fire coordination study?
No.
That would be interesting, because you do transitional attack coordination with fans and interior attack. I mean, there's no difference with transitional attack and a piercing nozzle through the wall.
Yeah,
there's
so far this one, it was narrowed down to the two primary tactics that came out of fire attack.
Oh yeah,
here's an efficient way for interior attack. Here's an efficient way for exterior, and that just helped us limit variables.
Oh yeah, and I understand that. It used to be, because it is, to me it's the same. If you buy transitional attack, like, okay, if I get water on fire faster than from the inside, I can commit ventilation faster, and if I commit ventilation faster, I can do search and rescue faster. You have that, like, okay, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. If you only have it as, I'm gonna put water in from the outside, then I can make interior crew, and they're gonna do the same push as they always do, and we're not gonna get to ventilation faster. I would agree that, like, sure, you made it easier to make that push, and it might be faster, but you also take time from the outside. Like, to me, like, the key is, as soon as you got water on from transitional attack, and the fire crew makes that, like, let's say, the left-hand turn from the hallway, and they see that the hallway looks pretty good. Right. We don't have massive fire extension. Yep. Ventilation on. Sure. But the same theory is with the piercing nozzle. The same. It just have some practical differences, because it's not as easy to validate the result from the outside. For instance, you don't really know exactly what result you're getting. But if you know you're getting water in there, it's just the same thing. You flow for 10 seconds and the fire is out. Like, it doesn't require a lot of water. Yeah, true. Just a couple of gallons in there, and break the window. You can have the same thing. You can put the piercing nozzle in, fire interior crew, banks left, see there's not a massive fire going on in there. Break a window, get ventilation, hydraulic ventilation, and fan on going straight away. And that's just going to make it faster. Yep. But it would be nice to have that on video. To come. Okay, I think we're going to cut there.